Hello and welcome to Neato, the podcast, where we have our first guest ever, Mr. Josh Franks. Josh Franks.
Glad to be here.
And then also with us, the normal crew. We have Mr. Vigil, Mr. Tackett,
Hello.
Hello?
and we all have microphones.
We do, yeah.
We announced that at the tail end of last week's episode, but in case you missed it,
I'm going to turn the AC off.
And somehow we managed to add a fourth mic. Oh, let me take off my headphones.
So in other words, I think you could say,
You guys are doing good.
Whoever let Adam make a soundboard was brilliant.
We'll be taking Adam's soundboard away after this episode. So enjoy it, Adam, while you can.
While you can. Today's topic is the 48-Hour Film Festival. We participated in the Oklahoma City 48-Hour Film Festival,
Good times.
even though we don't live in Oklahoma City.
Yes.
We live in
Taking over.
Tulsa. But they don't have that in Tulsa. So we went to Oklahoma City, and we participated. And that's what we're going to talk about. And Franks was our director on the project. So Franks, tell us a little bit about what we did.
Yeah, so the Oklahoma City 48-Hour Film Festival, basically it's a bunch of filmmakers, some aspiring filmmakers, some professional filmmakers, coming together to make a film in 48 hours. There's a couple stipulations. You have to choose a category out of a hat. We chose... What did we choose? We chose road trip.
road movie and school movie.
Yeah, road movie and
The
school movie.
most, I've never heard of,
Strangest genres.
Yeah, I've never heard of, you got horror, drama, action, road.
Those are the genres
Yeah.
that they think of when they're like, we're out of genres.
Yeah, what are we going to do?
More genres.
Two words together. Road
School
movie.
It's like when they're like trying to figure out a thing and the guy just like looking at things around him in the room, like, school, movie.
Yeah.
Like the Peter Griffin
Yeah.
thing.
Tier.
Griffin.
Shopping cart, roof guy. Roof shopping cart.
So what was you guys' first initial thoughts when you heard what we drew?
Well,
What do you think the consensus was?
we had in my opinion, a really like fleshed out idea that I won't spoil it because maybe we'll do it sometime later. But it was an idea that was like, okay, it's really simple. It has like just a few actors and like one location. So I was like 99% down to do that one, and it just didn't fit either of those genres. So I
Right.
was like, oh, what are we gonna do? Like I was kind of pissed. But.
I feel like we had 5 ideas that we could probably incorporate into any of the genres, and none of them worked.
Yeah.
Like literally,
Yeah.
and when we legitimately started from scratch, which is it's kind of cool. I think that's actually interesting. The fact that we started almost with nothing.
Yeah, I was at the movies because I was trying to. I think what we did best this year was we minimized the amount of people that were like on the writing front than what we did last year. So I was like, I'm just gonna step out. They'll get it and they'll figure it out. And when you guys texted that we got the road movie or school movie, I was like, oh well, we're screwed. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
School movie, we can't have nobody was like, oh yeah, let me get access to a school before
Actually,
the 48.
Jack did mention that he had access to a school.
Apparently,
But-
he's the custodian
Yeah.
at.
Is he really? Is that why?
I think he's like the custodial engineer there. Is this?
What does that mean?
It's just a fancy term for
You lay
cleaning
down the
toilets.
mix.
It's a fancy term. Well, so that would have been cool. I mean, it worked out, but those aren't last year. We got drama and spy espionage, which are drama is the most probably generic, other than action that you could get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we did terrible.
Yeah. I think sometimes you have too much freedom to do something and you just try and do everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what we did last year.
Yeah, and just for the and to let everybody know, we did the 48 last year, and it was our first time, and it did not go well.
I think most people involved, it's hard to say because by the standards of the competition, it was a good film.
Yeah,
you know?
it got third, but for us, our standards.
We haven't released it. It just wasn't a good. No one was confident that it was a positive reflection of what our actual skills are as
Yeah.
writers and stuff like that. It
Yeah.
was just very you could tell it was. We tried to do too much, I think. But
Yeah, it was our first shot. It was our first ever attempt at a 48-hour film festival. We didn't plan before, and like I think Adam was the only person who had ever done one before that,
Yeah.
right? Out of the entire team.
Out of like the other 20-something
And
people.
So it was, yeah, we were just noobs. I mean, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I had a blast that weekend. So to me, it wasn't a wasted weekend. Like, I had fun. I mean, there were some stressful moments, but I had fun overall doing it. And it was, I mean, if you watch the BTS video of that weekend, it's just craziness that happened, and it's just kind of fun to watch. But I don't know if I don't think that's been put out online yet. The BTS video, right?
No, not the BTS.
I think Cole worked on it for a solid 7 months, and then
Yeah.
yeah.
You can actually. It's funny because you can find the film on the 48's website because it's they have first, second, and third, and they have the links to it, and so you can actually find the version that we submitted. But
we're talking about last year's version, just to be clear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can find it there. But it's just kind of painful to watch.
So there were a couple more stipulations to go along with the 48. First we had the genres, and then we had, what was the next one? A prop that we had to use, and it was a clothespin, which is interesting because a lot of people don't know the clothespin is actually called a C-47 in the film industry. So it's kind of, whoever thought of that, I thought that was kind of
I thought it was a good
unique,
prop,
and
because,
clever.
and I think they probably has to be a stipulation when they're doing a prop, but like it needs to be something that anyone can get a hold of for like almost $0,
Yeah.
or under $5.
Last
or
year's
under
was a
$1.
greeting card. I
Right.
mean, you could like make one and print it out. Like,
Right.
It's
So I mean, I thought it was a good prop, and I feel like everybody had a pretty interesting. I mean, not
Everybody.
let's be honest.
Everybody utilized it, other than maybe 2 of the film. Like out of the 10 that we watched, like
Yeah.
everyone pretty much utilized the clothespin.
But
So-
nobody used it the way that ours was almost the center of the film.
Mhm.
And if you think about it, like we based a lot of everything off of the clothespin.
A lot of other people would just like put the clothespin on something,
Right.
Whereas like with ours, like he's a clothespin salesman, so it's part of the whole story in a way. So
You can't like it. The typical thing is if a film does really well, it always gets criticized. Like they did that beforehand, or that's like they kind of went outside the rules and produced stuff beforehand.
Right.
I think that's the one thing that you can't say with us, because our plot heavily revolves around the things that they gave us.
Yeah.
So like the line was like the pivotal kind of like transition moment of the whole short film, and then the clothespins and all the stuff is like if we didn't have those things, it would be a completely different movie.
Each of those, I think, were very not done in passing. Like they're very intentional. Like that line where like he picks up his suitcase and goes like regional. Like that's a part that's like it's memorable and that's funny. The whole, obviously the clothespins in general, and then like you said, it's a good transitions point. Like, well, that was a lie. Like I feel like I mean, when we went and watched this past weekend, we only saw like 9, but I feel like out of those 9, we used all of those 3 things in a very intentional way, not like a say it in passing or show it in passing.
right.
Or like some people, other teams integrated the prop like at the end, like in the credits sequence, so it was like just checking off the box and not really making it a part of the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like just to mention though, so we had the prop. There was a prop, a line, and a character, and the prop was a clothespin. The line was, well, that was a lie, and the character that we had to use was Ethan Rain, regional sales manager. Yeah. So, anyway, just to get that out of the way for whoever hasn't ever heard of a 48-hour film contest, or maybe not experienced with one, but I thought those were pretty easy to integrate. I mean, the character is like, you just name someone that character. The fact that they like gave him a title was kind of made it a little trickier, but
Works for
we
us.
just kind of rolled with it, and we're like, okay, cool, they're on a sales trip.
Right.
Like,
What I thought was interesting was when we watched all those films back, if you notice, all the films incorporated or had multiple actors. Like some of them had up to 12 people at one time in the room. And in these 48-hour film festivals, the one thing that's really noticeable from a technical standpoint is the lack of clean audio.
Oh my god. Yeah.
And when you have 12 people in a room, or even 4 to 5 for that matter, someone's getting left out.
And
Or
everybody's
people.
throwing lines.
Exactly.
Like,
And I think that was actually one of the most smartest things we did personally. Was just 2 actors, really strong actors,
Yeah.
not just someone we just threw on screen. Like Jones and Hightower are like probably the best in the state, in my opinion, for what they do.
and they work really well.
And they work really well together. So I feel like a lot of teams could probably learn a little bit kind of from our approach, maybe moving forward. I mean, not saying that.
Less is more.
Look at us. But yeah, I feel like for us, less was definitely more in this case. And, I think it showed. We look at all the films, and without being biased, I felt like technically and just overall story, ours was definitely probably the strongest out of our group. I can't speak for the other groups, but
I was thinking about the character Ethan Rain though. Did anyone else use a regional sales manager that was like his character is actually a sales manager?
No, it was all
I can't
just
think of
thrown
another
in.
one.
I mean, I guess the closest would have been the one with like the lady, not the red room, but the dark room, where she was actually like at a desk and was like a regional sales manager, but there
Okay,
was no
right.
like,
That's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty close.
yeah,
But I feel like other than that, it was like, oh yeah, not only am I a spy, I'm also a sales
Yeah,
manager.
it was
Like,
always
really?
just thrown in at the end,
Yeah.
or it was just a side character who like knocks on the door, and then they're like, it was like a cameo, or
Right.
it was just injected into their script somehow without having any relevance. to
Like
the
one of them
movie.
was the lady who was selling something at a garage sale. It's like,
Yeah.
that's not what a salesman. That's just a human.
exactly.
Humans have garage sales.
I think with ours, we kept it really simple, and then when you're not struggling to shoot the concept, you have extra time to shoot the simple concept really well and to focus on like the quality of it, as opposed to just like, okay, we got to hurry up and we got to get to the next 7 locations or the next whatever. So when you're just in we had 2 locations really. One was just inside the car and like out in the middle of nowhere, and the other location was just in a forest. So there's not really a lot of time traveling back and forth, not like shuttling different people because you only had 2 actors,
Yeah.
1 camera, 0 lighting setup, which was interesting. I didn't really think about that till afterwards. Like
Yeah, we didn't
We
turn
had-
a single light on.
we had no lighting. So it was all 100% natural light. And then, so when you're really minimalistic, you have time when you're not worrying about, because it could have taken 2 hours to set up a sophisticated lighting scenario at
Yeah.
like inside a house or
Mhm.
something. But when you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff, it gets really easy to focus on the quality and the technical stuff, as opposed to, we have 10 more minutes to finish lighting setup, and then we have to roll. Otherwise, we're going to miss our window at our next location or whatever.
Right.
We're going to make this actor have to go home or something like that. But
I feel like it also gave Hightower a chance to kind of like figure out his character. Because I don't know if you were were you in the car when we were doing the first scene?
Oh yeah.
You were, yeah. So Hightower, like when we first started, I feel like he was trying to figure out what and how his character just looks, feels, acts.
Yeah.
And I would say, like, piggybacking off what you're saying, Adam, is like the fact that we didn't spend an hour or 2 hours trying to light something, he got to spend that extra time doing extra takes in the beginning. Because I would say the car scene actually took us 4 times as long as any other thing the rest of the day. Just getting the rig right, the lines right, the sun right. I mean, that was quite
Yeah.
the
Oh, yeah.
challenge.
Well, it's like you got to one way on a road, and then you got to go all the way back, and you can't film that way because the lighting. And it was the first thing we were doing. The camera was overheating because
we had a lot of the monitor. We had a little camera as opposed to our bigger camera set up on a dashboard. So obviously I can't see it. And so we had this monitor set up that was working fine for a while, and then the cord shorted.
yeah.
So we're like, okay, we literally shot that car scene without even seeing what we were shooting.
Yeah, like Adam's out there like trying to like look through the windshield. I mean, it's like 10 o'clock now, so like the sun is out and it's the middle of summer, so it was like 90 something degrees outside, and he's just like looking through, like trying to focus like through the windshield. And we missed, like we had a really good like 2 or 3 takes, and we're like, all right, let's play it back. And we like, oh, it wasn't rolling.
Something with the monitor like it wouldn't record.
Yeah.
It didn't play back right, so we missed like probably 30 minutes of takes.
Yeah.
I feel like it's something that I was kind of thinking about during that weekend was, and also when we were watching the finished films, was like the idea that the creative is important, but the technical is almost like way much more of a separator, the actual technical aspects.
Yeah.
Like, we could have a good concept, but if we run into this technical challenge like rigging a car or cameras overheating or not knowing how to properly mic somebody, that's where all the films fell flat.
Yeah.
Was almost on the technical side more than the creative.
Yeah,
And it kind of made me think about how important the technical side is in a weird, like, I never thought about it so much, but I was like, dang.
well,
like,
and I think what's even like on the technical side, even more than video, I think is like audio. Like I can visually, I can get past something that doesn't look like it was lit right or was shot on like a DSLR with like a kit lens. Like I can get past that if the audio is okay, but if you have terrible audio, then
Which is a case for about 90% of those films.
yeah, I remember us last year. I mean, granted, we didn't have barely anything last year, but you know, it was. I mean, the hissing and like just the levels we didn't have time to do, and it was.
Yeah.
And that's why I was like so glad this year that like we focused so heavily on making sure that the audio was good, because we never like we're like, no, it has to look really good, it has
Right.
to be pretty, and it's like, well, yeah, it doesn't matter if it looks pretty if you can't hear anything, or it like, because it's so distracting, like hissing and like just dropouts, and like if somebody's not talking and you dip their mic, it's just dead.
I
Right.
think like visually, like visuals are totally creatively subjective. Like you could
Yeah,
have it
that's true.
grainy and like, oh, it just looks like it was shot on film, or you could have the colors any which way, and it's just that, you know, person's
Creative
like,
choice.
creative choice. Audio is not
Yeah,
subjective.
it's either good or
if you
it's
hear a hiss in the background, that's never supposed to be there.
Yeah.
If you hear like
unless it's a snake.
the mic's popping or something,
Yes,
that's
exactly.
never supposed to be there.
That's
if
true.
You, if you
Unless
hear,
it's popcorn.
yeah, unless it's popcorn.
Sorry, I'm going to keep coming up with it.
So when you have like video and stuff, or like the visuals are, you can tell a movie is gonna be bad, or a short film is gonna be bad, just by the audio in the first second and a half of the film, as opposed to looking at before the visuals even register in your brain as being good or bad.
Yeah.
You can tell audio first. So yeah, it's definitely like the thing when if a film had decent audio that we were watching the other day, it was like, okay, it's probably gonna be decent film, but if it started out with like a crackle, like, oh, this is gonna be bad.
Yeah.
Well, I was watching Stranger Things the other night, and I was thinking about audio because I've been thinking a lot about it since the film, and I was kind of like paying attention to just the dialogue and kind of listening, like what makes them sound like A-class level, and I was noticing that like there's not a lot of ambient sound, like it's very quiet as far as like when it comes to the ambient, the level of the room compared to the dialogue itself. And so it kind of made me think about like, I don't know, how next time, how can we capture like absolute clean signal and then like only add in our own ambient when we want to. And that's tricky because like we were out in the forest, and because I remember talking to my dad about it, and he was like, yeah, there's the forest sound is baked into the mic. Like I can't turn down the forest sound because it's all one signal.
Yeah, like the bugs and
the
like chirping,
the
and all
cicadas
Damn
and all that stuff.
cicadas.
So I'm like, I don't know if is that like a, you would probably know the most about this. Is that like the quality of the actual mic itself that picks up less background noise, or like how could we improve that on our next go around?
Well, and one thing that I think helped us a ton, and I think this is something I actually fought you on in the beginning, because like last year we had like one mic that like really worked, and then we had, I think, a boom, and we just focused so much on using the lapel. When I say mic, I meant like lapel mic. And I was like, and this year like we have a bunch of them, and that's what we use. And I was like, no, like we're gonna mic both of them up, and it's gonna be great. It's gonna sound good. And then just after miking up Hightower and in the first scene in the car, I was like, let's just try boom. And then just realizing how good the boom sounded. And then we left a mic on Hightower because he was the lead and had the most lines, and just kept the lapel on him the whole day, and then just boomed the rest of everything. And that's all that, our boom is like a $600 boom. Like it's not anything crazy. I think it's like a standard like Sennheiser or something or other. But I think that sounded way better than our like, $800, $900 lapel kits with our $300 microphones on them. Like,
Well, what I'm wondering though is like we've rented Justin's kit before, or
Right.
I think it's actually John's kit, but Justin has a kit that was telling me is like he literally has the best gear
yeah,
you could possibly have, and I think he said it was worth like
it was like
15
25
or
grand.
20, yeah, 20, 25 grand. And so I guess my question is like, what are you paying for when you pay 25 grand for an audio kit? What extra level would he be, if let's say we were using his kit, what would the difference be?
His kit is running into like a mixer and a something that
Like a ducking.
yeah, like he can EQ things before it even goes into the mixer, and it's got like trim level. I mean, when you have $25,000 in a pack worth of audio gear, yeah, it's gonna sound way better. But it also sounds way better because it's not going into camera, and you have somebody monitoring it and using as simple as like a special like foam thing to put the lapel through for like scenes where they're outside and there's going to be rubbing so you don't hear. I mean, there's just like, and that's the thing
Just
that
more
none
detail.
none of us would ever say like, I'm really good at doing on-set audio. Everybody hates it. Like nobody, like that's why like if you bring on somebody like Justin who has his own kit and knows it and understands the knowledge, and like in a situation where like, if we were shooting something and you're like, it's too dark, you would know what to do with the certain pieces that we have.
Right.
If we're listening to audio and we hear a scratching, we're just like,
Well,
let's just try moving it.
Yeah.
Like nobody knows.
That's what I do think is like, that's one thing we could do next year is like we just have one person like Justin maybe who is like they're just an audio fanatic and they've got the gear. They're also, like you said, just thinking only about that.
Yeah.
And can just like problem solve on the fly.
If you have somebody as focused as a DP is on visuals, if you have somebody who's just as talented and just as invested in audio, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
And then what you were saying earlier about like, how do they get it so like, like how Stranger Things was your example.
Yeah.
A lot of these bigger, I don't think Stranger Things, but I'm thinking of like Lord of the Rings or something. A lot of these bigger budget movies with stuff outdoors, they're all on a soundstage too. So there is no animals to compete with a lot.
I've also heard, I mean, I know this is like I forgot the word, but anyway, we always joke about ADR sucking.
How'd they sound?
It's pretty noisy. We might have to ADR the same.
That's not an option.
It never works, and it sounds like shit. I'm not doing that.
But I've heard a lot that like the highest budget stuff, they ADR stuff.
Yeah.
To get a studio perfect sound.
Yeah.
That they can then add exactly whatever ambient they want. But they like, I've seen an ADR studio because me and my dad have talked about it. Like they're set up for ADR, and that's what this studio mainly does. And so they've got this screen. They've got the person who's doing the ADR is looking at the monitor of the shot of themselves, and the engineer is looping, get it until they get perfect, and then putting that perfect take in.
Yeah.
And it's like, so
God,
I think
how monotonous can that be?
Yeah, I mean,
Jeez.
you could get a perfect, captured zero noise type of sound dialogue, but there's no way you could do that in 48. So it's like,
there's a like
People tried.
a feature. Yeah.
Oh,
There was
yeah.
one that was entirely ADR'd, I think.
Yeah.
There. Like if you watch interviews with actors or something, that's just like a common step in making a movie is okay. Now it's time. Like I'm doing a month of ADR, not a month.
Go
but
back
like,
in.
No, it's ADR week or something. So they're there for 12 hours a day, sometimes just ADRing their entire film.
My
Like
dad,
Tom Cruise or somebody's just in there grunting or doing his whatever, like his running or whatever, and every line is ADR just for safety. So if something happens and they just swap it out, and he's good at mimicking himself,
Yeah.
So you see BTS of him saying the line on set while he's running, and then him in the booth saying it with the same inflection, same
Right.
yelling or quiet whisper.
Yeah.
They're just good at that. That's like
ADR
part of it.
is really the trick of ADR, because we've done it with like auto tack and inserts, like vocal inserts, is at the acting itself, like almost more than the matching the mic. Like if you can match the mic, that's good, but it's the acting. I was gonna say my dad, he got this call from a company from, I think they're in the UK or whatever, that made this Liam Neeson film that just came out. And it's the one, if you go look up Liam Neeson, it's like his latest film where he's like, he lives in this like snowy area climate, and someone like kidnaps and kills his son, and he has to. It's kind of like
It's like every
It's like
other
every
Liam
Liam
Neeson
Yeah.
movie.
So anyway, I guess it wasn't Liam Neeson, but one of the actors
Taken
was named William Forsythe, was like coming through Tulsa, and so they needed someone in Tulsa to record his lines, and it was ADR, but it was the ADR for the clean version of the film, for like
Oh,
what you
yeah.
watch on airplanes.
Oh yeah.
So I guess it was like,
Dag nabbit.
yeah, it was like, Dad gummit, that kind of stuff.
That's
and so my
hilarious.
dad tracked this guy for that movie saying all the clean lines. So it wasn't like,
Right.
it wasn't like corrective ADR, but it was like cleaning it
Just
up.
watch this because this is like
Oh yeah.
this just goes to show like what takes place.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That kind of stuff.
So, like, it's just like that's what.
He's going full out.
Yeah, and I like that's to me that's cool because it's so different than standing in front of a microphone in like a living room and just being like, oh wow, okay, no, he's in that room.
Open
Right.
the refrigerator.
Yeah, and it's just
Yeah, he was fully into it. Like
Yeah.
he was fully acting it out because that's the only way he could get back into that spot.
I did receive and I won't name any names, but an interesting Facebook message about one of the teams having an audio guy from Jurassic Park, and sometimes I try not to take those things too seriously because it's just like, yeah, we got this guy, he's from Jurassic Park and he does all these Hollywood movies, he's gonna do our audio, no big deal. And I remember reading it and being like, this guy's so foolish. And sure enough, we get to time to view the film, and which one do you think was the worst audio out of all of them? It was pretty darn close. If it
Yeah.
wasn't the worst, it was probably the second to worst.
It was second or third worst. There was two that were worse.
But it was like a competition to see how worse can we get at times, especially related to audio. We already talked about audio being bad, but
Yeah.
it was all bad.
I just couldn't. You can't
Yeah.
personally send me a message about, hey, just so you know, better watch out. We got a Jurassic Park guy, no big deal.
Yeah.
And then you get to the film and your audio sucked, and then you follow up your Facebook message with like, well.
Oh, I didn't know there was a follow-up.
Yeah, there was a follow up message.
Oh man.
well, and that's like one thing that I was just thinking about like before we did this podcast. Like, I had a good time. Like, it was fun. It was obviously hot and it was a ton of work, and I was happy with the product. But then like when we went and watched, it was almost like, are we just a bunch of tryhards? Like, did we just, because I feel like a lot of these people who did this, like they just had a blast. Like, and you can tell like in the audience, like they were just loving it. Like watching their own film on that screen, like they just like, they had a great time. And it was almost just like that's so cool that they are like just enjoying their film. And it doesn't matter if they had bad audio. It doesn't matter if the shots were weird. For them, that was what it was. And then I was like, well, what did I do it for? And I was like, well, I did it to be the best. And then I was like, well,
I want to be good.
should I even be a part of this? Because I feel like a lot of the people, they're just, it's a competition, but I think for them, it's, we are lucky enough to do this as like our 9 to 5 or more like 6 to midnight. But, we all have a standard that we, I think, have set, and we want to be the best at what we do. And then when we enter something like this, it's almost like we're ruining it for other people by trying too hard. And that's why I was like, I'm just thinking in the future, like, do I want to do this next year, or would I rather just work with the same crew of people, not on a deadline, and make something for festivals just for us that is actually from film festivals, not just like a 48-hour something.
Yeah.
What are your guys' thoughts?
That's what. No, go ahead.
Yeah, that's what we've kind of been talking about the last like week or so. And after it was when I saw those other films that I thought about, like not in a negative way, but I was just like, I think that like we may not win the competition. There's
Yeah.
a couple
No,
films
there
that
were
might
some that
beat
are
us
great
out.
films.
Just
good.
from one of the trailers I watched, I was like, he's probably going to beat us out,
Yeah.
which is totally cool. But aside of like maybe a few, most of the films were just not professional level, and we're kind of like trying to operate at a professional level. So I was just thinking, man, I think we need to get into a tougher competition where like
Yeah.
maybe we're the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if we're the worst,
Then
it's
gives
gonna
us-
like only drive us up. Instead
Exactly.
of saying like, oh, let's just let's be the best in a competition, and like we'll always stay right here.
'Cause
We'll
we-
never grow.
You don't want to be that guy that's like showboating in a 48-hour film festival. Like that's like to me that's just like you're bragging in a 48-hour
Yeah.
festival. Like
I think the redeeming part of the whole process is the film festival. The way this particular one works, it's a national competition, actually international competition, but this was just like stage one.
yeah.
So there's the Oklahoma City one, which I think in the state of Oklahoma is the only one.
Yeah, I believe so.
And so if you win that one, you go to like a national
Filmapalooza.
You go to a national film festival, which obviously if it's the winners of each one, they're going to be, you would assume, like quality at that point. And
Yeah.
then I think if you win that one, or maybe that's I know there are films
That's
from other
the end
countries
of that
too.
one. But if they will not just the winner, but they will submit a handful of those of the city winners. A handful of them, they will submit 2 cans for you. They'll
Oh,
actually
that's
submit
what
you
it
to
is.
cans. And then, but other than that, like there's
Yeah.
a winner of that too.
Yeah. So
which is pretty cool.
if you think about it that way, it's a little bit more. I mean, it makes me feel better. Like there's a chance for. I'm not saying like that. I think it's kind of dumb to assume that you're ever going to win anything. But the film that wins our city is, whether it's us or a different team, it's going to be a good film, so that it's going to go and have a life afterwards and compete against other films that are possibly way better.
Yeah.
So I think with that, and then like afterwards, my wife was like, "I don't think you guys should do this again next year," because she
Yeah.
was kind of like, "This is like for the same thing you were saying. It's like it's not doing anything for you guys. It's like you're having fun,
Mm-hmm.
and you're you have a movie in 2 days.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's like almost a waste of time because it's not really like sharpening our skills, and it's not like we make stuff like this every day.
Yeah.
Like for clients or for brands and stuff. So for us, it's like the technical stuff or editing something really fast or shooting something on like a quick timeline is not new at all for us.
Yeah.
And it's not a crazy feat or a crazy accomplishment either
Yeah.
to do it. So for us, it's like, well, what's the point? So
And
I
I-
think we were talking about doing like other film festivals too that
Yeah.
extend our time and really challenge us, I guess.
There's a ceiling with a 48, like because you only have 48 hours.
Yeah.
You're not gonna look at short films that were shot over the course of 2 or 3 weeks, or features that were shot for months and months, and assume like you can't look at those and judge yourself against that because
Yeah.
you know
That's what we were mentioning, like maybe sending this to other stuff. Like, I kind of don't think we should, because the fact that, to me, it's not fair to put our 48-hour film against other
Yeah.
films that have had zero timeline, like
Yeah. Like
zero
months of-
restriction.
yeah.
So I'm like, that's where I was like, hey, let's write another script that we absolutely love, all of us love, and let's take the time to do like full out pre-production, set design. Me and Adam were talking about this yesterday, like the set design, the pre-production, the casting, before we ever shoot a single frame, and then and then spending time on post, like doing, if we need to, doing visual effects, doing a score,
rotoing
all
out
that kind of
something
stuff.
like
Yeah,
a simple
just stuff that, like, I think I just want to see how far we can get. Like, I want to see what our ceiling actually is, because
Right.
then we'll know, and maybe after the second one we do, we'll get better, improve.
Right.
I know, Brandon, you and I have talked about this, and I think you guys have been in this conversation too. Like, I really think that Retro or Sticky Pixel, whatever we brand it as, should do our own film festival.
Yeah.
Like, there's not a Tulsa Film Festival that's worth a crap right now, and if there is one, I don't know about it.
No, I don't think there is.
I know about Dead Center. Is that Oklahoma City?
I think it's an Oklahoma City thing,
Okay.
but like,
It's not like a. I think what we had talked about was like how Oklahoma City has their like 48, like doing a Tulsa, like with not the saying Oklahoma City people couldn't come up and do it, but not a 48, but just something where it's like it's for probably people our age that are semi-professional to like a
Even
professional.
like college students
Yeah.
too. Jeez.
Yeah, just something that it doesn't have a time limit, but it is able, like people are able to put it, enter it into something like, I don't know, like what the awards or anything. But I think we know enough people in the industry where we could have like judges or something that would, people would be like, oh yeah, I'd love to have this person like judge or talk about my film. And that's like with film festivals too. Is like you'll get like feedback and you'll know like what worked and what didn't. Whereas like with what we did this weekend, it's just like, oh yeah, you either got an award or you didn't. Like there's nobody like trying to. There's no community there that is like, I don't think, and I've never seen, that is bettering and being like, hey, that was awesome. Maybe next year, or like maybe try this, or like, what do you think about this? Like there's no like collaboration among that, and like it'd be so cool to have that like in Tulsa rather than people doing a 48 who think that they have the best team ever and that they're gonna kill it. And it's like, it's way more of a competition than it is like a community coming together and like multiple people making something cool and then like talking about it and like getting excited about what other people did.
a part of me likes the 48 idea just because it keeps the momentum high.
That's
Like,
true.
think about it. Like, we all got together, we crash course it through a weekend. The next weekend, we watch the film. And then, like, everything happens in a very small amount of time, which I think excites people because it's doable for them. Like, not a lot of people have the access to the computers as much as we do, and like can just kind of trickle,
Right.
trickle around on edits.
Yeah.
So I feel like, I mean, we can talk about it more, but I feel like a 48 wouldn't be a bad idea. And I really feel like we could do it good, like really well done. Like the Circle Cinema, Abby Kurian, I think her husband is like owns it or is a general manager or something.
Yeah, they're
Like-
they're super invested with that
Oh, yeah.
community. I know they have lots of contacts.
So I think it's a matter of like
I think
putting
it's a-
something on paper.
It's a cool idea. To me, like the value in the idea you guys are talking about is creating more of a film community in Tulsa.
Yeah.
Like I think there's a lot of people there, but they're not necessarily connected right now. And like for example, if we want to do this film that we're talking about, where not no time limit, but we create a film for the purpose of making a great film. How many people outside of our our company do you guys actually know that could help with the film and specialize in certain areas? Like I couldn't name very many people.
You
Just
mean to
because-
help on our film?
Yeah, like I'm saying, like if we wanted to expand our crew and have a large crew to make this thing great, how many people do you guys actually know?
A lot.
I mean, but
I mean, he's a producer. but-
yeah, I'm just saying like I'm saying
I know, I
like
get
we're
what you're
not.
saying.
It's
Yeah.
not very connected. Is
Right.
what I'm saying. Like I feel like
Or if you go
something-
to like a Dallas or like a New Mexico, like where the film community is large, like there's people everywhere. Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's because no one stepped up. 10 years ago, there was a Tulsa Addies. Actually, it's been less than 10 years ago now. And it just didn't. We just didn't have like a big enough film community to keep it going, and it was just poorly managed. So I think that's why everyone started going to Oklahoma City, advertising awards, and then film stuff. It's like, oh, we'll just go to Oklahoma City and do it. In Tulsa, we'll whatever.
We've got the film incentive now to where they will reimburse, I think, up to like 30% of your film. And then apparently something happened. I don't know exactly. My dad was trying to explain it to me, but something with Kevin Stitt where he's
Double,
saying like,
4 to 8.
yeah,
million.
he'll do even more. Like,
Yeah.
I think there wasn't even a limit. He's like, if I'm interested in what the concept you guys are doing, like I might just, like I'll write you a check.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got the.
So then
finances.
you talk, you go from producing something in LA where like they basically don't want you to produce anything there because there's
Yeah.
so many people trying to do it, and they basically it's like almost like they find you
Yeah.
for wanting to make a film. Whereas here, we'll pay you to make a film.
Yeah.
Because we kind of want that growth here.
Yeah.
So it's a cool idea. The idea of us doing a film festival. I mean, I want to make a film before I make a film festival.
Right.
But
I mean, it's just
Yeah.
it's cool to just think about, like, not that we have any free time, but
How would we brand it, like a Sticky Pixel Film Festival? I think Sticky Pixel is like one of the coolest names, just in general, like our logo and like.
I've always
I think
wondered.
it's really cool.
I've always wondered, like, because at a 48-hour film festival, you get a certain level of quality just regardless, because, no one can make a masterpiece in 48 hours. So I wonder how much but you need to have that weekend. Everyone can give up a weekend, most people.
yeah.
Maybe not dedicate months to a really stellar short film though, and have the the endurance to kind of like, okay, let's work on this, let's edit it, let's go back and
Right.
reshoot things. So the 48 hours is like it's what kind of draws people in a way, but then it also limits the quality.
yeah.
So I kind of wonder what it would be like to maybe instead of 48 hours you say like, okay, you have 1 week
Yeah.
to do it.
I was kind of thinking about that too.
Friday to Friday. Or
Yeah,
Saturday to
something like
Saturday.
that. So you have the limit of like, okay, I'm only investing like a week into this, or like a week, like 2 or 3 weeknights. If you're an actor, you're like, okay, I'm only in a couple scenes, so I'm only doing this for 2 days.
Yeah.
So you give teams more time to shoot and to edit and to write, and maybe you have like a whole 2 days of just writing and pre-pro, and that's still realistic.
Yeah.
So imagine if we had 48 hours of writing and pre-pro for this.
Yeah.
Or other teams had 48 hours of post.
Right.
So-
Or then we could actually have focused, like, we could have taken 2 days or 3 days to shoot it rather than
Yeah.
and not even full days. Like, hey,
And
we're gonna go
my
shoot
only
the
thing though is I think that you would be running into like, now you're almost running into this really big time commitment of like, you essentially, you have this whole week to do this, but most of these people have to go back to their job on Monday.
I think that,
So then you're mainly limited to nights at
well,
from Monday
I think
to Friday. You're
regardless of whether you were a mailman or whether you work in the industry, everyone has to go back to work.
Yeah.
So the issue is like, everyone basically, what you do with this time is your choice.
Mhm.
So what can you do with that? Same thing with like a 48. People have to work during the 48. It's
Yeah.
no different. And so I think if you extend the time, I think you could probably bump up the quality really well. I mean, there's no excuse. I mean, it's similar, but there's way less of an excuse if you're late.
Mhm.
If we worked all week, but I turned in the film an hour late. Imagine that.
Yeah.
I think it'd be
But-
cool if you're doing this week idea. So you get your concept at the same time on Friday, like 7 p.m. or whatever, and then it's due at, let's just say Thursday at 7 p.m. or whatever time. Give enough time to the premiere place to actually show the premiere on that next Friday. So like the premiere is still 1 week after, like we did, or maybe it's on Saturday. So you have Friday to Friday, and then the premiere is on Saturday, just like it was with ours.
Yeah.
Except you have that whole time.
Right.
So you give them just enough time to get the files pulled in and like queued up for the show. Maybe they need like a day. I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, it can't be that hard, guys. Throw it in Pro Presenter. Come on.
I think it's a cool idea. I mean, being a part of something bigger than yourself, maybe. I'm kind of rambling,
it's
but yeah, I think you know what I'm talking about.
It's always
being a
good
part
to
of people that.
have a community around
Yeah.
something you love. So, I see what you're saying.
Mhm. So it's just basically a group of people like starting this like, cool club.
Oh, real quick, just so the audience knows, we should probably go around and say like what our roles were.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. It's a good idea.
Franks, why don't we start with you?
So, I was the director of our short film, Roadblock. But I feel like collectively we all had some really good feedback for everyone, which is, I think it's nice to kind of like give everyone a voice on something like this. I think, especially not in in a professional environment, it's a little bit different. There's definitely more of a hierarchy thing that you kind of have to follow. But I actually like the fact that we kind of like all kind of went in on the directorial side and had some good things to implement.
It was easy because there was only like 5 of us
Mhm.
on set,
Mhm.
besides, and then adding in the actors. So
Yeah.
it was, we were able to chime in
Yeah.
and not have it be overwhelming.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So directing, then I was on the writing team. I kind of just sat there more or less and watched you write and kind of like watched you write, but you did a good job, Tackett. So. Which leads us to Tackett.
You wrote some stuff.
Yeah,
Seriously.
The end.
The end. What would you do,
And
Tackett?
you also edited probably more of the film than I did.
That's okay. I had it in my head.
What did you do?
I did the
Oh.
writing side, the writing the script, and then a little bit of editing, all the ingest, all that jazz.
You were
Edited
editing
a scene.
in the car while we
Actually,
were
I
shooting.
feel like
Car.
you spent as much time trying to figure out the ingestion
Yes.
and the sync as I did editing the entire back half of the film.
Guys, you got to slate the damn clips. Even if you just say take one.
You're right. And I'm an editor, and I should
Because
know
I would hear
better.
Brandon Jones say a line, and I'm like, he says his line so consistently. The way he says his line was so consistent 4 times in a row. I'm like, I can't. There's something weird happened where you're saying like something was rolling where these ones were cutting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Are you talking about in the car?
Yeah,
We had-
It was the
yeah.
first.
Yeah.
It was the first. Yeah,
The car was a
first-
shit show.
Yeah, it was not. The
terrible.
car was painful.
Anyway,
I was. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, basically, I edited the first scene, but then Franks came in, edited like pretty much the rest of it, and then like ended up recutting the first scene. So
Sometimes that's
I'll
helpful.
call
though.
myself the junior editor on that. And then, but I do think I set the tone with my first edit. So, but which leads to we found that track, the Marty Robbins track, and then I end up writing a Marty Robbins style track
Yeah.
for the beginning. So that was
In
fun.
like 3 hours, and it sounded incredible, and it was hilarious.
Yeah, it was fun.
I was nervous in the beginning.
I
It was
I
like,
really
we're
wanted
so
to do-
close, and now we're scoring something.
Yeah, I know. I was really adamant about like wanting to add some original music, and everyone fought me on it. You fought me on it.
Oh, I fought
You
you
fought me
hard
on
on
it. Casey told me, she's like, you don't have enough time. You don't have enough time. But my dad was the one that kept saying, hey, you really should do it.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, just try it. I even sent him a voice memo. He's like, I think I can use your voice memo. Like, I think he was just saying that because to get me like to
Yeah.
accept the idea of doing it. And then so we ended up doing it
Well,
on
and,
Sunday.
and even
Because you edited, I had more time.
of all the
That was the
films
only way it
that
was possible.
we only watched our group. So there's 3 groups. We watched the 9, I think.
Yeah.
There was like 28 total, and I think we had either 8 or 9 in ours.
Mm-hmm.
And out of all of them that we watched, there was probably 3 that like they said original score, but it was like somebody on a keypad. just
Yeah,
like-
it was just like a.
Pads.
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
no. I mean, you did guitar, vocals. I mean, it was mixed. I mean, it's like when it first started playing, I was like, oh, okay, like it's a different version of the song. And then you started singing. I was like, oh my god, this is you. Like you actually went and recorded this.
Yeah.
Like it's like a whole nother level.
And that's another thing. It all goes back to we had a simple concept that was easy to shoot, easy to edit, easy to act out, and then so that way you have all of that stuff. Like we had the edit locked by the time we wrapped shooting last year. If you think about it, they had
Yeah.
pretty much an edit lock by end of day Saturday.
Well,
right?
we were still shooting Sunday morning last year.
Yeah.
yeah,
That was
last
awful.
and we had finished the main. I mean, we were shooting
Your
till
Slack
midnight
was
last
like
year.
I think 10:30 p.m. or something, where it was like, hey, edit's finished. I'm gonna go home.
I'm gonna head home.
So literally, our Sunday, which is the most supposed to be, I mean, usually is the most chaotic day in a thing like this, was like, I had to go out and get like 2 drone shots.
Dude,
and then
I went to.
we had,
I
we-
took
it
Casey
was,
to brunch
yeah.
on Sunday morning
Yeah.
before I
Like,
wrote the track.
We
Before
went to church in the morning. and
It was
then-
like we had a whole entire day of the 40, not a whole day, but like the entire Sunday just to do things like above and beyond.
yeah,
Like, you know, and it was all just extra stuff that now that the film is done, I mean, we had to color it and stuff, and we had to do sound post, but we could do the music stuff, and we could go out and get extra shots that just made like the scene tighter and better, and like just little thing as opposed to most teams were probably out like shooting the second half of their thing Sunday, and then you have like 2 hours to edit.
yeah.
And then
but-
your dad's just like killing it with the sound. I mean,
He was able to do like 4 sound passes.
yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know the exact number, but
right.
it was
a lot.
somewhere around there because we were making a couple changes and stuff. So What do you guys think? Like, where do you think we could improve if we do it again next year? Where do you think we could improve? Areas of improvement.
I think
Like I mentioned,
The
I think we
biggest
should have a
one-
dedicated sound guy.
Yeah.
On set sound guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think from so like we already said last year we and I'm not like criticizing the year ago version of us, but I think we were kind of over ambitious, which is it's not a big deal. So we intentionally kind of like simplified everything this year, like we were talking about. I would maybe kind of like stretch it out a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
To where maybe our story is a little bit, it just has like more of an arc than this year's did.
Maybe
And,
one more location, 2 more actors.
I think we could have benefited. It would be a better film if it was just a little bit more complex.
Yeah.
Because it's good and it's like technically sound, but now that we kind of have seen both sides of the spectrum, I think we can kind of like settle into like a better place.
We kind of like went real extreme from
Yeah.
this extreme to this extreme, like a gazillion locations to
Yeah.
2 locations to a gazillion
Like
actors.
20 actors to
2.
2 actors.
Yeah.
Now we can kind of, we have a gauge of what it feels like to be like, okay, no, this is too complicated now. This is too far. This is too many. We can, and then now we've been like, oh, this is almost too easy from a production standpoint.
I think casting is another thing I thought about too. Was like when I watched that trailer that I told you guys I think could potentially beat ours this year. Like the casting is a little more diverse on age, race, gender, everything.
Yeah.
It's more diverse. Ours was 3 not 3 white males, but 3 males.
Yeah.
At the same age, 27 or something like that. Or average age 27.
Chris
30.
is in his 30s.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
Um,
But, and
No,
in that
I-
trailer, if you watch the trailer, like, there's a guy who looks about 60. There's a guy who looks in his 30s.
there's a kid.
There's a woman. There's,
That's always a pet peeve of mine that I think we always kind of fall into. Where you ever watch like network television, where it's like the hospital show or the police show, and they're all like supermodels, guys and girls who are just like the most, they were like the top of the headshot pile because they're always just really pretty. But like you're
Right.
supposed to be a cop, you're supposed to be a doctor. Like how is everyone so amazing looking? You're just a forensic scientist.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's
Forensic scientist should be a nerd.
Yeah.
Hey, how are you 26 and a forensic PhD? Like it's that kind of thing that I think it's like. I mean, we fall into that all the time. We just cast our friends and our, people in our age group to
Right.
do everything. But
Oh, real quick, we didn't finish roles.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
I'm
is it
done
my
with
turn.
mine. Yep.
I was the DP, the director of photography. If you don't know film things, and then I had I was credited as a writer, but I really didn't write necessarily. I just kind of like, I came up with a couple little punchlines and little gags. If like, I was more of just like when we were kind of stuck at a scene, I'd be like, okay, what if we did this or something, or what if, so it was that. I didn't edit at all this year. I colored, yeah.
Oh, that's right.
That kind of goes with being, I think, DP though. It's just kind of like
It's very complimentary.
same thing, yeah.
Just like writing and directing. Like
Yeah,
you need
it's
to-
like you need to have a good
and then
knowledge
editing.
of both.
It's like in your head as you're.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I shot it. I think overall it was really, again, because it was so simple, it gave me a lot of time to think about visuals and how everything should be, as opposed to thinking about it on set as I'm setting up the camera and stuff. I was able to do, when we finished the script Friday night, after we all went home, I kind of went and like storyboarded everything, which was super, not storyboard, but like I kind of outlined like a shot for shot of like, basically outlined every shot of the thing. And so
I
I could,
remember seeing you posted a Slack at like 2 a.m, and
Yeah.
I was still awake because I had drank a coffee at like 8, and I could not fall asleep. And I read through. I was like, dude, someone else is still up too. This is a
Yeah.
little more comforting. And then I finally fell asleep.
but that's like that whole, I did that just not so we could like, stick to the shots, but just so we on set were like, okay, how should we shoot this? Like I was just trying to avoid trying to think of something on the spot that's not going to be as good, just so I can kind of like okay, we're done with this shot. What's the next one? And then pull that out and say like, okay, it's this, and then it kind of like jogs my memory of like, oh, okay, well, here's the plan for that kind of
Right.
thing. So that kind of adds to just speeding things up. But technically, like we said, there was no lights, no really anything complex.
No grip stuff.
We had some technical problems on set for sure, but I think because everything else was so simplistic, we had time to deal with the technical like the whole first scene was really tough to shoot.
Yeah.
And then we had like, you know, the Movi was overheating. Everything was overheating all day.
Yeah.
But it's
Cole
fine now.
overheated.
Cole overheated. He had to sit in the car for a while. And then we had the most complex thing was that day for night shot, but that was it.
Yeah.
And we
Which I thought
shot
turned
it.
out awesome.
We shot it.
It looked
fine.
like it was really shot at night. I mean, it looked like
Yeah.
it was at night.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we had a day for
Creatively.
night something because we refused to shoot anything at night.
Yeah,
because
we're like,
it's
no,
just
we were
so
shooting
Not having a day.
complicated. So and it all worked out. We shot it, you know,
Perfectly shaded area. Worked.
yeah. And so that was basically it. What'd you do, Brandon?
We're almost done. We probably got to finish up here real soon.
Yeah, we got
Yeah.
like 5 minutes. And then I guess, I mean, producer, but there wasn't much to produce. It was Cole's car. Both the locations are public property. The town, I mean, it was all pretty easy. And then just AD, so assistant direct, which basically just like keeps track of time and making sure that we're getting everything we need in the time that we had and I think we wrapped. Like, I think I had us call at 6 and I said we'd be done at like 5:30, and I think we like wrapped at like 5:32. So it's like, all right, I did my job.
And you were also
Yeah.
maybe you just said this, audio.
Oh yeah,
you were a
that was
big-
I was literally I boomed everything.
Right.
So I was like like attached to the camera the whole day.
That's
just,
how
like,
you know it's a
leaning
small
on.
set when the producer is running audio.
But like
That's an
that's
independent. That's an independent film right there.
I know. But I mean, like, and then just going back to like the boom. Like, I'm so glad that you were just like, no, we need to do boom. We need to boom. Like next year, I'm like, no, screw lapels. Like, no, we're just gonna
I
have
freaking
like
hate
we're gonna
lapels.
have like 2 dedicated like boom
I hate 'em
operators
so
because it
much.
sounded so much better.
Yeah.
But
There's that scene in the car, just for little inside trivia. Maybe I'll put it up like in the corner or something while we're talking about it. But in the car, when it shows Jones and Hightower driving, what you don't see is directly behind them, me and Frank's like in the fetal position in the back
With the
seat of the car,
monitor.
looking at the monitor, and and Brandon is in the trunk of the Jeep doing the same thing but with audio equipment and headphones. So it's like
for
it's
2
Seems
hours,
like a bunch of sardines.
and we
Yeah.
couldn't run the AC.
we couldn't run the AC because it messed. You could hear it in the microphones.
Oh, that's awful.
And it was literally about 100 degrees that day. It was one of the hottest weeks of the year.
Yeah.
And
I got a freaking heat rash.
and
Still suffering.
and so all of that, like us kind of like hiding in our little windows of blockage where we can't. The monitor broke down, like I said earlier, so we can't see. Am I out of the shot? Like
Yeah.
we just have to guess.
And he's just over there listening, just trying to like,
help the actors with the lines.
Yeah.
But anyway,
A lot of butt sweat.
Okay, guys, I'll never write a car scene again.
Well-
I heard you loud and clear. God.
well, and I think, I know we need to end this, but I think, like, if we're talking about what we could do differently, it was the Thursday morning, the day before we were gonna do that I think we actually decided and was like, who wants to do it? Because I originally was like, I don't want to do it, and then I talked to Kristen and I was like, hey, I think they're gonna do it. I feel like I want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And she was like, totally fine, like go for it. And so we didn't like if we if we decide to do it next year,
Let's plan a little
let's
more.
just like
Man.
hey, let's actually like lock down, like call some places and
Mm-hmm.
get approved in just in case, and call other people
some
and get
actors on
Justin
board,
to
yeah.
do audio, and
Because
because
he said he would,
Yeah.
he told me he would let us borrow his bag next time.
Yeah.
So it's like,
yeah. Well,
let's just make up our mind, guys, next time.
Yeah, that's it.
so, well, Franks, thank you for joining. Thank
Yeah,
you
dude,
for
our first guest.
directing our short film and making it awesome.
so Franks, if you had to describe this episode and our short film in one word, what word would you use?
When you looked at the word Neato, was that like my cue? Like, was that like,
I mean,
You say what you want to say.
Say what you want to
But-
Any
say,
word you want to say, but
but keep our branding in mind.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just kidding. How would you? This is just our close every week. How would you describe your time today on the show?
It's pretty good. I would say about 10 minutes ago, I had some pretty tough stomach situations happening.
But you stuck it through.
I just kept my game face going
yeah, there you
and
go.
dug my foot in the sand. So I'm gonna go to the bathroom now.
All right.
So he didn't say Neato.
This has been Neato.
Do we
Neato.
Want, do we want Tack at the point at the camera?
Goodbye,